Okay, now we're going to look at best fit. This is a little bit more complicated because there are, as you can see, three different types of best fit theories. Again, I'm not going to look at the individual theories by particular theorists. I'm going to look at the general concepts, and you can read up further looking into particular theorists. With best practice, there are some key names: Pfeffer, Purcell. Purcell also fits into best fit, but best fit is more usually they're just looking for an understanding of the theory, and the idea with best fit is that there is no one best way. Where best practice says one size fits all, best fit is the opposite and argues that companies, organisations are far too complex. There are far too many variables within the organisation, culture, what's happening inside, what's happening outside. All of these different things impact on the organisation, and therefore the type of strategy that you go for needs to be tailored to the needs of that individual company. So your strategy is going to be unique. So within that, as you can see from the slide, there are three different theories, three different approaches within best fit. We will look at vertical fit, we will look at horizontal fit, and we will look at the life cycle model. Okay, so most of this, if not all of it, I've already talked through. Best practice, one size fits all. Best fit is the opposite of that, that it's unique. Yeah, I've said all of that already, so I'm not going back through it. Although the life cycle model was at the bottom of the list and tends to come last in the books, I'm starting with it because it's the easiest to understand. A life cycle model is something that's taken more generally from business strategy and can be applied quite regularly to products as well as organisations. But basically the idea is that an organisation will go through 4 stages of the life cycle. This could be business, it could be a subsection of the business, so it could be like a strategic business unit or something like that. But as I say, it can come right down to an individual product. So you're looking at, with an organisation, you will have the startup phase. Then as the company grows and expands, then it will reach maturity where it's more maintaining the status quo. It's grown as much as it's going to grow, and it's doing well. Or then we go into the decline stage. Obviously, don't really want a business to go into the decline stage, but a product may go into decline, and the company should then also have a portfolio of different products. So they're looking at replacing a product if it becomes obsolete or goes out of date. I mean, if you even just think about it, the fact that if I was making this presentation 10 years ago, I'd probably been using a PC. We've moved on from desktop PCs to laptops, and I'm actually recording this on my tablet. So things have changed quite a bit. So you can see how, from a product's point of view, I don't even know if you could buy a PC, desktop PC these days, but certainly as a product that would be in decline. Tablets may be seen as being maturity. Sorry, not tablets. Laptops may be seen as within the maturity stage of the life cycle product, and I would assume that tablets are probably seen as part of the growth, that it's an area where it's growing and developing. Anyway, we're applying that to an organisation from an HR strategy point of view. So basically what we're saying is, at these different stages of an organisation, what HR does, how it sets up things, what it offers, how it focuses, has to change according to the stage that the company's at. So if you're looking at startup, you're looking at attracting staff who have innovative ideas, creative, perhaps going to be more of a risk taker. They're going to be quite dynamic. During the growth stage, you're going to be looking for rewards packages that are going to be encouraging aspects where the company can grow. So if you're looking at products or sales, You may want to have a rewards package that focuses on commission-based pay, bonuses for high sales, those sorts of things. So you will tailor things depending on what's requiring. Obviously during the decline stage, which we hope companies don't get to, but ultimately you could be thinking about how do you manage things, how do you minimise costs, how do you deal with reducing numbers, do you relocate staff, can you reassign them or deploy them to different areas, do you have to consider redundancies, and how do you manage that, what do you do? So at the different stages within the organisation, your HR strategy would change, but it's all based on what's happening within the organisation. So you'd look to see where the company is and then tailor your HR strategies to the respective stage of the company and what it needs to achieve during each of these stages. Okay, external and internal fit. When you read the book, or certainly when I was reading the book, I found these seemed on paper to be very similar. So I will try and explain them, but if you do have any questions, drop me an email or send me a message online, and I'll do my best to try and help explain it. But external fit is where the company or your HR department, you're looking at the competitive strategy of the business. So it's not just the business's overall organisational strategy, it's what its competitive strategy is, how it's dealing with the products or the services that it's selling and how does it achieve that. From an HR perspective, you're then thinking about, well, if that's what the company's trying to do, if it's trying to increase sales, then you need to identify what behaviours are required to achieve that, and then your HR strategy will be focused on those behaviours. So if you're looking for aggressive sales staff, for example, you would make sure that you're recruiting people who have the correct competencies, who have the correct personality. Your reward strategy is going to be focused on rewarding high sales. Those sorts of things. You'll provide training that will focus on sales, customer service, those sorts of things. So whatever behaviours are required to support the competitive strategy of the business, that's what the company would be focused on. So that's your external fit. It's looking at what the competitive strategy of the business is and then designing your HR strategies to elicit the behaviours that are required to support that strategy. So when we're looking at external fit, we're talking about external to HR. So we're still thinking about within the organisation, but we're not. It's not external to the organisation. It's about what's internal or external to HR with this theory. So, with the internal fit strategy, it's recognising that the external fit idea is perhaps a bit limited, that it's fine to look at the competitive strategy of the business. You should know what the business is trying to do, how it's trying to sell its products, for example. But this internal fit strategy recognises that the working environment, the operating environment of the business is more complex than that. That it's not just about the company's sales strategy, for example. It's also about the internal politics within the organisation, the internal structure, but also what's going on outside the organisation, what's happening in the external environment. So again, bringing in things like your steeple analysis factors. So if that's more complex, it's therefore more difficult to look at all of that and think, what's our HR strategy going to be tailored to all of that? So the internal fit will think about those things, but it starts by designing the policies and procedures within the organisation for the HR department. Then it will build its strategy and it will make the strategy fit the business strategy. So it starts with the HR strategy. Perhaps there's more of a risk here that if they don't tailor it correctly. They could have a mismatch and it may not align or integrate properly. So it's really important with this one that we think about designing the HR strategy, that the HR department is leading with its HR strategy, and then looking at the external environment and trying to make it fit. So there may be the need to adapt and be flexible depending on the situation, but it probably also means then that as the environment changes, the company can change, the HR strategy can change and be more adaptable as well. But the key thing here is that the internal fit is looking at the HR strategy, but it's more determined by the organisational structure, how the organisation is structured, what the organisational charter is like, and the processes within the organisation. So it's more process driven. So it's going to be looking at policies and procedures and following the rules, whereas our external fit is more focused on getting the right behaviours. So the starting point's slightly different, but as I say, when I looked on paper, what they were doing and how they were achieving it, they seemed to focus on very similar things. But as I say, if you've got any problems, let me know. Right, so I'll do a separate video on resource-based view of the firm just to keep things separate, and it means that you can dip in and out when you're watching the videos.